Hi, this is Jason Lisk with Full Genius. I am here with your NFL Week 6 Survivor recap and rundown. Well, all of the wipeouts and eliminations in Week 5 probably contributed to how people reacted and played Week 6. We had one really big favorite of 2 touchdowns on the board, and a lot of people gravitated toward the Green Bay Packers. We saw their popularity at an average of 43%. Usually in the upper 30s to mid 40s in a lot of pools. We even saw them get over 50% of picks in the big the Survivor contest as people flocked to the safety or the apparent safety of the Packers. But still, there were plenty of other teams that were drawing some interest in Week 6. That started on Thursday night with the Eagles, and it continued with teams like the Colts, the Rams, the Steelers, the Broncos, and we even saw some teams like the Raiders pop up in certain large pools. But those teams I mentioned, in a lot of my pools, I saw them flip. Sometimes it was one team, like maybe the Colts were the second most popular. Another one, the Steelers were the second most popular. So it was kind of all over the place with that next tier. They were generally between about 7 and 13 to 15%, depending on the pool, up and down. We saw the first one up on Thursday night, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they took it on the chin. They got darted and scatterbooed. The Eagles came into the game coming off their first loss to the Broncos on Sunday and immediately fell behind against the Giants. And quite frankly, in the second half, didn't mount much. The Scatterboo was doing backflips. The Eagles could not get that offense going. The warning signs we saw with the Eagles during their 4-0 start, where the offense wasn't really explosive, they were winning close games, came to roost again in this one. People trying to get the Eagles through because they do have a tough schedule, and this looked like one of the potential spots to use them. It did not work out on Thursday. So as we entered the weekend, it looked like we had a continuation of Week 5. Another big favorite had gone down. But things settled down on Sunday, though there were some close calls. It started in London. The Broncos almost lost to the Jets, despite the Jets looking awful on offense. Justin Fields of the Jets had 9 sacks. The Jets had negative passing yards once you include the sack yards. They had fewer than 100 total yards, and yet they had a chance to win the game late. They had the ball at midfield, down only 2, could not pick up the 10 yards or so they needed to try to knock out more Survivor entries against the Broncos. So the Broncos did survive. We also had a close call with the Colts. Colts had looked dominant in previous games, had won handily against the Raiders. But in this one against the Cardinals, drawing Jacoby Brissett at quarterback in place of Kyler Murray, who was out with a foot injury, Brissett played really well, threw for over 300 yards, had the Cardinals in the game. They had the lead in the fourth, a back and forth game. The Colts took the lead with just over 4 minutes left. And then Brissett led them down the field, got inside the 10, but could not get any further. And they were stopped on 4th down with about a minute left. The Colts able to kneel it out to survive with the 4-point win. So those were your 2 closest calls. The Green Bay Packers, of course, put a slight scare. You had to get a little nervous with the Packers' recent history, how they had blown a 10-point lead against the Browns, how they gave up 40 to the Cowboys and basically eliminated Survivor entries with that tie on Sunday Night Football, because they didn't really put the Cincinnati Bengals away. They did not cover that 14-point spread. At various times, the Bengals got it within a score, and then the Packers were able to push it back out again. So the Packers did hold on, but they certainly didn't have the Packers backers feeling comfortable all Sunday afternoon. Outside of those games, most of the other teams got through fairly easily without drama. The Steelers won comfortably. The Raiders even, sent the Titans packing again and got Brian Callahan fired after the game with yet another loss for the Titans. And the Los Angeles Rams won at the banged-up Ravens, who will now go on their bye and try to get healthy and try to get Lamar Jackson back. But the Rams were able to win that game, even though they lost Puka Nacua. So those teams got through. overall, it depended on how your pool picked Philadelphia, because the only other loss on Sunday that probably contributed to any kind of survivor damage to some entries might have been Dallas. In really large pools, Dallas was probably a pick that was sneaking in there at times as a 3-point favorite, but they lost at the Panthers. Rico Dowdle ran all over them. So really not much losses besides the Eagles on Thursday, on Sunday. And so other than however many people picked the Eagles in your pool, you probably didn't see too many eliminations. So likely close to 90%, depending on the Eagles' popularity, got through this week in your pool. And we're on to week 7, a week that looks like it could be yet another with a bigger double-digit favorite in the Chiefs. So check our video on week 7 that will be out on Wednesday morning, and look for who we'd like for the week 7 survivors, and good luck in your pools.